What up? Everybody lock in. We talking about the top 5 Cartoon Network cartoon today. Yes, Adventure Time is one of them. So, originally, this was going to be a video wholly surrounded by Finn. But I just finished Adventure Time for like the 4th time. And I feel like it's so good at going through everyone's character arcs at once that it would be criminal for me to try to just focus on one person. It would be criminal. So we gotta talk about everyone in general. I feel like Adventure Time is more than just a coming of age story. Yes, it is one of those, but it's also just a pure character journey where you learn all the different stages of change. And I have another video coming out where I talk about the different stages of change and but when it came to anime and manga and stuff. But with Adventure Time, we could start off with Finn, who this video was originally going to be about. Where Finn, he starts off as a sort of just a typical early teenage kid going through puberty, where he's very sporadic, very high sprung, he's very violent about his heroism and all that. And then he goes from that to later on in the story where he is trying to talk out Gumball and Princess Bubblegum from getting into this war that it just won't benefit anybody. Violence is not the answer. And seeing that was great. But seeing his humanism come into play where he's talking, where his love stories, the way that they go. And when I talk about his love stories, I want to talk about a specific episode where I really started to hate, what's her name? What was her name? Oh my God. Lumpy Space Princess. Where I originally started hating her. Where he lost his arm at that point, and the flower petals his flower petals on his arm that's growing out, I feel like they represent his character, like his love. And like as he's going through all these different stages where in puberty, you're very hormonal. So I feel like him kissing all these different princesses and stuff, and the way that his flower was not showing any progress, it shows that it's a real life lesson that you can bounce around with all these different girls and you won't find anything fulfilling out of it. And at the end of the day, there is something wrong. There's something wrong with your spirit. That's why when I say that when it comes to like body counts and everything, in my opinion, once you got 10 plus body counts and you haven't found the one, and you don't think you found the one out of all 10 of them, it gets to a point where there's something wrong with your soul. It gets to that point. Now, if you got 10 bodies and one of them, you thought that one of them before was the one or something like that, like it was just some failed stages in between, you just lost. But it's like you at least you know you got some love in you. But if you not there, then you gotta do some soul searching, brother. But either way, but yeah. And then when he gets to Lumpy Space Princess and he kisses her and she's like, I ain't come here for that. I ain't come here for that. I genuinely didn't process it until you see the flower petal lose one of its petals. It's like, fuck. And that was to show the loss of innocence. But then seeing how the bee came through, and she sort of was she was the only princess that wasn't just trying to get up all over him. Like, she was genuinely following him around, trying to help him the whole entire way. It shows that there is more. That sort of filled up his void, knowing that there is someone who actually likes him, someone who was actually there for him. And I feel like that was a great representation, where I feel that whole journey sort of helped his whole relationship with Flame Princess, where originally when he lost Flame Princess, he thought just an apology would be enough to get her back, and chasing her multiple times would be enough to get her back. But then seeing her later on in seasons and stuff, he accepts her. They become very good friends, where he's helping her with Rat Bear and all that. Like, it's so good. But then we get away from Finn and we bounce to Jake, where Jake is starting off as this magical dog, and he comes from a family who deals with magical creatures. So originally you don't think something's wrong until you get to an episode where he's showing his alien form. But he doesn't know he's an alien. He's just like, why is everybody, in his mind, this is just a side effect of his powers. And that's very normal, because we've seen Jake do some weird things, but they're like, you aren't changing back to what you originally were. And that's more than just your powers. But in his mind, he still feels like his everyday self. Like, he feels like he's himself, so he doesn't know why everybody is looking at him the way that he does. But at the same time, it wasn't even the way that he was telling people, it was more like a way where he's like, what? I'm not changing. Y'all just, it's something wrong with y'all. There's nothing wrong with me. But that's not you accepting yourself. That's you deflecting everybody else's opinions on you. That's not you accepting your opinion on yourself. That's you deflecting everybody else's. It's okay to acknowledge, all right, there's something off with me. And you see that later where he's having a conversation with Jermaine, and he's talking about his paintings, and he's like, what's up with your paintings? They're a lot different from before. They don't fit anything that you usually do. And Jermaine, he's like, well, I know that, but it's okay for me to try to explain everything. I mean, it's okay for me to try and explore different forms of art, but regardless, they all have the same message. It's just different forms of it. And that sort of helped him, where he's looking at the abstract art. That was the episode that I'm referring to, Abstract, where he's sitting there and he's like, you know, my life is sort of like these paintings, and looking at these different forms of art, yeah, they're different, but at the end of the day, they all come from you, and they all share the same message. It's all the same opinions. It's okay for it to be different. It's okay, as long as you know what the meaning is. And he's reflecting on himself, and he's like, there's some things that have been wrong with me, and I'm afraid of it. But as long as I know that I'm me, at the end of the day, I'll be fine. I want to get that tatted on me, like his old, as long as I understand the shape of my soul, I'll be all right. I love that, because at the end of the day, I quote that a lot, because at the end of the day, I feel like that's a very good thing to know, where when you're going through life and you're dealing with all these multiple things. That's why I love the whole observe but don't absorb thing, where it's like all these things around life, it can affect you, it can change you, but at the end of the day, you need to know who you are. Stay grounded. Jake was very grounded in this situation where he's dealing with all these different changes with himself, and at first he didn't know how to deal with it, because it was sort of messing him up the way that people were seeing him, and it was definitely getting to him. But later in the episode, he realizes, you know what, I'm me at the end of the day, but I can acknowledge there's something off with me. And then he reverts to his original form. And I just like that. I like that a lot. But then, since we was talking about Jermaine, let's talk about Jermaine, where, Jermaine's different. He could be in a different video. Jermaine is definitely different. He's not one of the main ones, per se. He is. But I'm gonna talk about someone else. I'm gonna talk about Princess Bubblegum. Princess Bubblegum, I hated you. I hated you for so long. But really focusing and really locking in, I can for sure appreciate how they wrote Princess Bubblegum, where she started off as this dictator princess, this dictator queen of Ooo. Well, not of Ooo, of the Candy Kingdom. And she sort of, you see that she has a room with all these monitors watching everything that happens in not only her kingdom, but in the Flame Kingdom, Marceline, like, she's spying on everybody, watching everyone's move, trying to control everything. And in her mind, it's because she's trying to protect her people. She has to do what's necessary for her people. And I think that's a good way to rule, to be a ruler. That's a good mindset to have, that you need to be able to know that you have to do whatever it takes for the sake of your people. But at the same time, it dehumanizes you when you are monitoring everyone else. It gets to a point where it's not about safety, it's just about control, where she's she has a blunder with the Flame Kingdom, where the Flame Kingdom, all their flames are dying out. And she offers to help Flame Princess with her kingdom. And she's going in there and she's taking apart, like, all their resources. She's destroying the flame giants that's keeping them heat up. Where Flame Princess, she realizes that she's like, you know, there's something wrong with you, right? Like, you know, that's not normal, that you are doing all this to our people. You know that? Like, you cannot govern everything, you cannot control everything. And Princess Bubblegum, she's like, listen, I know that, but you are a sporadic person, you are a wild card, I cannot risk you hurting mine. And she is like, you need to have faith in people. That's the problem. You making more enemies by trying to prevent an enemy from becoming something. You are making something out of nothing by trying to overthink that this nothing can become a something. You are causing the effect. You feel me? So she's doing that, and it's just like, when she gets called out for it, she says, I want to show I'm not a bad person. Because deep down, she's not doing this with evil intent. She's not evil. She's just overprotective. She's just overbearing. It's like an overbearing parent. And so she cuts off all the monitors and everything. She lets everything happen. And we see more as the show go on, where she's letting everyone, she sort of takes a back seat more and more throughout the show, where to the point where when the King of Ooo was elected, she didn't try to force her way back into it. She said, you know what, the kingdom shows who they want to rule. That's all right, I'll let everything play out. I need a break anyways. And I love the whole time where she's having the speech with Marceline, where she's like, Marceline, I'm tired. I think I've been tired for a long time. And that just goes to show the weight of being a ruler. But it also, I feel like the weight was so crushing, like having to overwatch everyone at one point, that it gets to your head, where it's like, I cannot allow one thing to go wrong. So I feel like that break was needed. Her little farmland arc, it was for sure needed. But then Scratch, Marceline is interesting, because Marceline, no, what am I talking about? Ice King is right there. But for Ice King, I want to more so focus on Betty than Ice King, because Betty was something so beautiful. It was such a beautiful story. Ice King and Betty's story was so beautiful, and it's going to be mentioned again when I make the video of the things you do for love part 2. Go watch part 1. Oh, like my videos. People have been watching my videos and not liking them. Like it, nigga. But yeah, Betty and Ice King. It was so sad seeing Betty chase after the fact that Simon had to go through such a crazy, wild change, and she's trying to do everything to get him back. She couldn't accept the fact that Simon was gone, and her not accepting the change, because Betty came from a very, very earlier point in time, where this was before even the Gum War. Where at that point she had lost Simon, but she didn't really know what was the extent of their breakup, like what was happening with Simon. Where she sees Ice King and she's like, what the she's like, what happened? What happened to him? And she goes that extra mile. She takes miles. I need a girl like Betty. She takes miles, leaps and bounds to try and do anything she can to get Simon back instead of trying to accept Ice King. She even tried to accept Ice King at one point. Where not even that. It wasn't even that she was trying to accept Ice King. She made it seem like it was, and this happened in season 10, I believe. This was either season 10 or 9. I think it probably season 9, where she asked to go on a date with Ice King. She's not trying to mess with the crown or anything. She's like, I want to go on a date with you. Where she takes them back to a point, she takes them back to a location where her and Simon used to date. And she's trying to remind him of everything. Like, she even said beforehand, she was like, I'm not going to try to force Simon. I'm just going to try and live with the fact that he's Ice King now. But her actions in this date, it's clear that she wasn't ready to do that. Where she's bringing up all the old things that her and Simon used to do. She's not worried about what her and Ice King could do. She's not worried about what Ice King likes. She's trying to make Simon recollect all the things that he used to like in a hope for Simon's memories to get back in and for his personality to take over and override the crown. But it didn't work, and she losing her fucking mind. She lost her fucking mind. And she's looking at this, and when they take this whole cave, where it's an episode where Magic Man, at that point, he's the king of Mars, and he takes them through like this tunnel and everything. And the whole point of the tunnel was to accept the fact that some things are just out of your hands or whatever. And she sees that, and her mind, seeing the lesson, because Finn had overcame what was happening in the tunnel. And she's like, and Magic Man is telling her, well, Normal Man at this point, he's like, the whole point of the tunnel was for you to realize that some things are just out of your hands and you just need to live and let go at one point. At a certain point, it gets to a point. And she's like, nah, I don't think I will. And she's like, you seen how Finn just overcame? That just proves a point that I just need to work harder. I just need to go harder. And she comes up with a plan to have Gold come through and mess with everything at Ooh and use his, and she's trying to siphon his power to override the crown's effect. And her doing that, it took all of that happening for her to get absorbed by Gold, for her to realize this is all my fault. I should have just let things be. I should have just accepted it for what it was. And I feel like it's not even Betty's fault that she couldn't accept it. She's not from that point in time. In her mind, she just jumped from her timeline, which was decades, maybe centuries beforehand, from where they are currently in time. And she just came from a point where literally probably like months ago, Simon was a normal person. Jump ahead, and this is Simon for sure, but it's not him at all at the same time. This show was amazing. This show was amazing with bringing characters full circle. I don't know. That's why when people bring up Generator Rex, Danny Phantom, all that, I'm just like, nigga, I love him. I love him to death. Love him to death. But Adventure Time, bro. But Adventure Time. And sure, we do have the gripes, the disgusting points where we get to talk about Lumpy Space and Lemon Grab. I'm cutting this video. Anyways, that's it. That's all I had to talk about for this. You feel me? One Piece. Did y'all read One Piece this week? I'm gonna fuck with y'all. Y'all boys stay safe. I'm out.